Hello everyone, it's a long time coming. I was finally able to play Kirby in the Forgotten Land and of course get my review ready for you. So, Kirby in the Forgotten Land 2022 platforming video game, of course, sequel to all the Kirby games. It was developed by HAL Laboratory and published by Nintendo. You can play it on Nintendo Switch. And this game took me close to, I want to say like 8-ish hours to beat and get through. There's definitely a lot of that's just kind of first playthrough with doing a decent amount of the side stuff, finding collectibles, things like that. Of course, I'm nowhere near 100% completion on this game. There's still quite a bit for me to do, but just taking the overall main campaign and just my first experience with it, I think I have enough to talk about this game. So, without further ado, let me get into my review for Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So, this new adventure for Kirby brings in a lot of really fun new gameplay ideas, but kind of the main idea of the story is that Kirby's world gets invaded by a force that you don't really find out until the last half an hour of this game. And so, yeah, Kirby's world, planet Popstar gets invaded. Him and all the Waddle Dees, again, just get brought to a brand new planet. And a lot of the Waddle Dees starts to be captured and taken to, well, that's what Kirby has to figure out. So Kirby is basically traveling through a bunch of different lands on this brand new planet, trying to save as many of the Waddle Dees as he can, defeat the bosses who are helping whatever force is taking all of the Waddle Dees, and of course, too, trying to take Kirby himself for a sinister plot. So you basically fight your way through 7 different landscapes that this planet offers to, again, just save planet Popstar. So yeah, there's 7 different landscapes that you go through. All of them are pretty unique. There's, snow planets, fire planets, deserts that you have to fight your way through, tropical places, and each one has about 5. So each kind of landscape has 5 different stages that you fight your way through. So again, depending on whereabouts you are, there's cityscapes that have ginormous malls that you go through, and just kind of 5 individual landmarks that you go through, and then also 2 on the map. There's a bunch of places that you can find extra coins, and there is also these little time trials that basically you get a reward from them that helps Kirby upgrade his abilities that you're going to be able to find throughout the land. So as long as you complete the time trials by the given allotted time, which is usually 3 minutes, you're going to get basically these dream stars that help you, again, upgrade Kirby's abilities. And these are just fun little mini games that, again, make use of a certain ability you find in the game. And when I mean ability, Kirby has a bunch of weapons that he can use to fight his way to, of course, the end game of this. And those abilities, I think there's 8 in total. There might be 10, but I believe it's between 8 to 10. But a lot of these are just, again, ways that Kirby can fight all the enemies that are around these lands. So that can range from more of like a gunslinger type who has guns that'll be able to shoot enemies, and also some crazy charge attacks that it has. There's swords, there's hammers, there's basically spinning boomerangs that Kirby can throw around. There's one where he puts on a helmet and basically big spikes come around and you roll around and you're able to basically you hit anything and they'll get stuck to your helmet, and then you can shoot them at enemies later on. So yeah, you can just find these abilities all around the ground, or there's certain enemy types that'll have these abilities. So Kirby, of course, sucks them up and you'll get that ability from them. So what these time trials do is they'll take, again, one of these certain abilities, and you have to go around using the ability to, again, make your way to the endpoints and get these stars for upgrading. So if you're using, say, like the gunslinger type, you'll have to shoot targets in a certain amount of time to unlock new stages, and you just keep basically running through them all. But it's just how fast can you do them? If you're able to do them in, so there's 2 allotted times. Again, I said like the maximum that you have to do is usually around 3 minutes, but there's also kind of a minimum set time that they have set for you. So say if you're able to do it in 45 seconds or less, you also get coins, which you need to, there's a bunch of uses for the coins. So once you save a certain amount of Waddle Dees and kind of get past the first stage, there will be a lot of Waddle Dees who basically want to help you on the journey. So they start to create their own town, and they will have a ton of basically things that they set up in this little town to help you out. So that, of course, coins will be able to help you buy. You can also use coins, or you're going to need coins, to help you upgrade your weapons and whatnot. So again, when you go to upgrade your weapons, you're gonna have your swords, your guns, things like that. They're basically just gonna be new versions that give you more power and just more move sets to the weapons that you find in and around the lands. And of course, the more of these upgrades that you're able to do, these time trials will have certain, like, usually all of them have 3 phases. So in order to do some of them, you need the second or third phase to do it. So some of them will remain unlocked until you unlock all of these abilities. But the coins in the town can be used to, one, buy collectibles, which are basically like mini amiibo figures that, again, you can just find going around the land, or you can just buy them from the coin slots. There's also a little home that you can go into for Kirby, where the main thing in there is you sleep and it'll regain your health if you're running a bit low on health after a level, and you can go back to the town at any time too, no matter where you are. There's also like little Easter eggs that'll be like comic books about Kirby's past journeys and things like that. There's a fishing mini game to help you get coins. There's little shops that set up that you can buy abilities from. That it could just, again, be more things like, here's a health potion, here's the death defiance potion, things like that that you can buy from them. And there's also mini games involved in one of them that's kind of like a food place. So what you do in this mini game, I mean, there's a fishing mini game, but in this mini game is basically you have to serve customers as fast as you can. So they'll come order a tomato, you have to go to the tomato slot, pass it off to them, and it gives you a limited amount of time in order to actually give them things. And of course, the faster you do it, the more satisfied the customers are going to be. And yeah, it's just the more money you'll make for yourself by the end of it. There's also an arena that'll eventually get built. So all of these buildings will be built after you save more Waddle Dees. So the more you save, the more things that you're going to be able to get added to your town. So it's definitely worth, when you're going through all the levels, find as many as you can. You'll always get at least 3 by the end of each level, but you're gonna want to definitely find more and need to find more. And I'll explain that in a second. So I'm getting ahead of myself here. So they'll build an arena for you where you can go in and fight the past bosses that you fought beforehand. And there's also a fun little Meta Knight boss fight that you'll be able to go and do once you get this arena. So it's definitely really, really fun. You can get a lot of rewards and coins from these fights. So it's definitely worth it to take advantage of all the resources that the town gives you. There's also a little cinema in the town, but it's not really anything too special. It just basically replays the past cutscenes if you want to rewatch them again. So it's not really all too worth to spend a lot of time in the cinema there. But when it comes to saving the Waddle Dees, of course, there's a bunch of little tokens and collectibles you can find in and around the map if you go and explore a little bit. But you do want to explore and save as many Waddle Dees as you can, because like I said, there's the 5 stages that you go through each landscape, and then there's a boss fight after you do all those 5. And usually to unlock the boss fight, you have to have saved a certain amount of the Waddle Dees in the landscape to unlock the boss fights. So these, of course, you need to collect more and more through each landscape. I think it starts off at like 18, then it'll be around 20, 25, 30-ish. So yeah, you're going to have to go around, find a lot of the Waddle Dees if you want to unlock the boss fight straight away. I had no problem doing it, but of course I'm a gamer who likes to explore as many things as I can absolutely find. So I had no troubles running around, finding all like the Waddle Dees that I absolutely could, collectibles, going down secret paths, going out of the way to do, again, some of these mini games and things like that to just unlock as many as I could. Even if I was able to go back and replay certain sections to, like, if I missed something or if I wanted to explore it a little bit more. For most of them, it gives you that option. Sometimes if you miss a certain part, there's no way for you to go back unless you just replay the whole mission, which can suck sometimes, but it is forgiving in some ways that will help you go back, save the Waddle Dees, or just get more collectibles if you miss them again the first time, sometimes immediately, sometimes you got to replay the whole level. Also in this game, there's a bunch of new abilities that Kirby's able to get too, just aside from the weapons. So there'll be little mini games where, well, just a bunch of things where you have to suck up objects and use them to your advantage. So of course, the one that they showed off in the trailer a lot, and of course on the poster, is a car. So Kirby basically sucks up a car and he's able to use the abilities and get around really, really fast. So there's a bunch of racetracks in, like, in the main missions, and of course also just in some of these side, again, mini games that you play where you have to go around a track in a certain amount of time, or there's just some places that you can explore. it's an easy way to beat enemies, and they all control really, really well. So there's the car, there's basically traffic cones that you'll be able to suck up to, and they give you a ground pound ability, which you'll see cracks in the ground, and if you have that cone, you can open them up, and there'll be sometimes switches to hidden areas, coins, amiibo figures that you can find. Basically, just a bunch of hidden things that you're gonna need to use these abilities for. There's pop cans, so like pop machines, that vending machines essentially, that you can suck up and give you a very big power attack. There's kind of these big circles that you use that allow Kirby to like blow like a fan would, and you can activate some fans to again change paths or power up generators. In this, you can jump on boats, and it basically gives you a speedboat ability to get around. There's some really fun boat missions in this, but yeah, each landscape brings something new for you to do, or they'll incorporate a lot of these again certain abilities that or objects that you need to use to again find hidden things or just progress through the main campaign. And they again they just add them in at times that keep the pacing in this game really, really fun to go through. And yeah, I just had a blast with it, where enemy type and enemy variety changes quite a bit, so you're not just fighting the same enemies all the time. It's really, really fun. And of course too, going and finding all the different abilities at certain places is really, really fun to kind of again approach boss fights differently, and also too just regular enemy types really, really nicely. There are certain times where you have to use a certain ability to get through a certain place, but it never feels in a way that's just tediously forced, or they use all the abilities very, very well, and it's just a blast to go through them. And none of them are just way too in your face, or you're using them for too much time. There is a lot of freedom of choice still in this game that keeps everything fresh and keeps you using abilities in ways that are just very, very fun and engaging. And when it comes to the boss fights in this game, I don't. So there's a two that I found that were a little hard, where the difficulty definitely spiked quite a bit. There's, I think it's the fourth main boss that you face. It's basically like an armadillo, who I found is just one of those cheap, almost Mortal Kombat like bosses. I'll save the final boss is very, very tough too. But a lot of the bosses in this are easy to go up against, but I found the mechanics and their movesets are really, really good for most Nintendo games. There's a lot of really fun attacks that they use. Again, it keeps things fresh, and they're very, very fun to fight. I really enjoyed it. And of course, too, before you get to the boss stage, it'll give you a certain amount of abilities, weapons that you can use to fight them. So again, it keeps it fresh, and you can kind of tune your style a little bit to how you want to fight these enemies. And again, the last boss I found was a big difficulty spike, where it went again from facing kind of normal, easy-ish Nintendo bosses to all of a sudden fighting like one of the Valkyries from God of War. It was a very tough fight, and if I didn't have my Death Defiance at that point, it definitely would have got me, but very fun fights. And I do want to say probably one of my favorite Nintendo boss fights I've done in quite a long time. Really, really good, extremely cinematic. Again, you get to use a lot of Kirby's abilities, which is super fun, and it never in a way felt cheap, kind of like the Armadillo did. But yeah, the boss fights in this game, even though they can be easy, extremely fun to play. And again, going through them again in the arenas, and sometimes too in the main campaign, you got to fight them again. Very, very fun to go through. And again, nothing in this felt overused or tedious to go through, just very, very fresh and fun. And it kept me on my toes the entire playthrough. There was a bit at, I want to say in the last hour and a half, I felt that the pacing was a little bit off, and it was starting to feel a little overlong. But just the way that they told the story in the last little bits was engaging. It was fun. And I want to say more like the last 45 minutes, half hour. It was definitely, there's some really cool cutscenes that they do. And even though at moments it felt like the game was starting to get a little too long or dragged out a bit, it all wrapped together really, really well. And again, became a really fun and epic ending for, well, anyone who plays this game to go through. Of course, there's a few different difficulty types if you want to ramp up things a little bit or ramp things back if the fights are getting too hard, but this is a very user-friendly game. I don't want to say it really holds your hand throughout, but there's definitely a lot of opportunities for you to get better, learn enemy movements, things like that. There's a learning curve that's not really all too steep, but very easy to get a hang of, again, if you want to put the work in and have a lot of fun with this game. But you can dial things back if it starts to get a little too tough for you. But yeah, I'm just so happy to finally have another Kirby game that we're able to play. I rented this one from the library, but I honestly think when it goes on sale and things like that, which of course with Nintendo games is going to be for a while, I'm definitely going to pick this one up permanently because it was a lot of fun, and I do think it is one of the best Kirby games that I've ever played. I haven't played all of them, but I've definitely played my fair share, and I really enjoyed this one. So, with everything taken together, I'm gonna have to give Kirby and the Forgotten Land an 8 out of 10. I highly recommend it to anyone who has a Nintendo Switch or anyone who's been a fan of the Kirby games because it's just extremely well made. And again, something a little different from the past Nintendo or just Kirby games that they've done in the past. Something very fresh that breathes a lot of life into the series, which Nintendo has kind of been doing for the last 5 years. They've done it with Metroid, they've done it with like Super Mario Odyssey, with Zelda Breath of the Wild, just kind of reinventing their games in ways that just breathe a lot of fresh air into, of course, that series that they're trying to go to. And I find it really paid off in Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I had a ton of fun with it. And again, I can recommend it to just about anyone. Kirby is super cute as always, and just an amazing, awesome character that you love to play as and root for. But yes, if you played Kirby and the Forgotten Land, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. And if you like this review, you can definitely check out every other review and everything I do on this channel through a playlist down below. And of course, I'll link some up top here. Thank you for subscribing and clicking that bell. And if you want to check out everything I do live stream and Twitch wise, there is a link to that in the description of this video and of course my channel bio. And in both of those places, there is a link to the Media Mountain, which is my Discord where we talk about movies, video games, comic books, TV, pretty much everything that's awesome in this world. So you can definitely join that amazing community. That'll make it even more amazing than it is already. And yeah, just awesome guys. Definitely go check out Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I had an absolute blast with it.